All right, good evening, everyone. We will call our January 3rd meeting to order. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. Make sure they are not going to beep and buzz and tell us to turn right on Gilead Road during our meeting. Now that you've done that, we will have a moment of silence. If you could just please join me in a moment of silence, which we will be doing this month in remembrance of the victims and survivors of gun violence in the United States. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have announcements. Ms. Escobar, thank you.
Tonight we have a couple announcements. One is electricity's drop boxes. The electricity's payment drop boxes at Huntersville Town Hall and Cornelius Town Hall will be removed effective July 1st, 2025 due to low usage. Customers can still pay in person at the electricity's office at 11316 Sanford Road during business hours, and customers can also still pay by mail, by phone, or online. Visit huntersville.org for more details. Also, we're happy to announce that we have an arborist available. The town of Huntersville is excited to welcome Andrew Celio, a professional arborist for the town of Davidson, who will be available to our residents for a limited time. Mr. Celio will be available June 12th, June 26th, July 10th, and July 24th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. for outreach and educational opportunities for our residents. You can connect with him by emailing him at asileo@thetownofdavidson.org, and you can find out more information about this program by visiting our website at huntersville.org. Thank you.
We have a presentation from the Public Arts Commission. Do you have that for real? It says presentation from the Public Arts Commission. No, I don't think that's. Yeah, I believe that's at the end. Yep, thank you. Just making sure. We have today two proclamations. The first one is one that's near and dear to my heart, as I've been a long-time advocate in gun violence prevention. Whereas every day more than 120 Americans are killed by gun violence and more than 200 are shot and wounded, and whereas North Carolina in an average year has 1,636 gun deaths with a rate of 15.3 deaths per 100,000 people, a crisis that costs the state $19.5 billion each year, of which $470 million is paid by taxpayers. North Carolina has the 23rd highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. And whereas cities across the nation, including Huntersville, are working to end the senseless violence with evidence-based solutions, and whereas mayors and law enforcement officers in partnership with local violence intervention activists and resources who know their community best and are most familiar with their local criminal activity and how to address it and are the best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as we see an increase in firearm homicides and non-fatal shootings across the country, increased calls to domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in city gun violence. And whereas on January 19th, 2013, 15-year-old Hadia Pendleton was tragically shot and killed, and so on her birthday, June 2nd, people across the U.S. recognized National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 7th to help raise awareness about gun violence and pay tribute to Hadia and all victims and survivors of gun violence and the loved ones of those victims. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the hands of people who should not have access to them, and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our families and communities safe. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim June 7th as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in Huntersville, North Carolina. If you want to come up, we'll take a picture. I'm joined by volunteers of Moms Doing Action here also happen to be dear friends of mine. And now we have a proclamation for Pride Month. Whereas all are welcome in the town of Huntersville to live and work, and every resident deserves a place to call home where they are safe and accepted. And whereas the town of Huntersville strives to ensure our town is a place where all people, regardless of race, religion, national origin, gender, disability, or age, are treated with dignity and respect. And whereas LGBTQ people in the United States face disparities and discrimination in employment, healthcare, education, and housing. Whereas June marks the 56th annual celebration of Pride Month throughout the United States. And whereas the town of Huntersville promotes inclusivity and equity, safety, dignity, and a welcoming environment for our residents and visitors. And whereas the town of Huntersville is enhanced and strengthened by the cultural, civic, and economic contributions of the LGBT community, and we embrace this incredible, rich diversity of our population and town staff. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim the month of June as Pride Month in Huntersville, North Carolina. All right, and just to, if you've not spoken before, please take a moment to review that just went away, our public comment policy. Speakers have 3 minutes to speak. And we will begin with Manisha Parekh. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Manisha Parekh. I'm a resident of Huntersville. I'm a clinical psychologist, but most importantly for this particular moment, I am the very proud mother of a queer teenager. I stand here today to thank Mayor Clark for having the courage to sign the Pride Proclamation that was just read. I'll be honest, in some ways it saddens me that I have to thank you for that courage. That the mayor is showing courage for simply stating her support of our LGBTQ citizens, because it shouldn't have to take courage to stand up in support of your neighbors. It shouldn't have to take courage to say, I see you, I recognize you, I accept you. And yet, unfortunately, we're living in times in which it does take courage to stand up and say these things. But here's a small reminder. It takes even more courage to stand up and be who you are. I know that there has been a lot of chatter on social media and a lot of hateful messages asking why these proclamations are needed. And so I want to share a couple of statistics from the Trevor Project's 2024 U.S. National Survey of Mental Health of LGBTQ+ young people. Of the 18,000 LGBTQ+ individuals between the ages of 13 to 24 who were surveyed, 39% of them had seriously considered attempting suicide the year before. 1 in 10 of them had actually attempted suicide. But those who reported living in very accepting communities attempted suicide at less than half the rate of those who reported living in very unaccepting communities. This is why these proclamations are needed, because our children need to know they're accepted. As a mother and as a psychologist, the Trevor Project survey findings speak to me. We all want acceptance. We all just want to live our lives. We all just want to be. And proclamations like the mayor's help create the space for everyone on the rainbow of gender and sexuality to be themselves. So thank you, Mayor Clark. Remember, love wins.
Scott Cornett, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm Scott Cornett. I've lived in Huntersville for 10 years. I'm here to thank you for the proclamation for Pride. I grew up in Wyoming, and it happened when that tragic story of Matthew Shepard happened. And that was the town right next to where I grew up. That caused a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. Actually, when I told my dad I was gay, he said that's a good way to die. I don't know if that meant Matthew Shepard or what that really meant, but I lived a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety in that environment, and it was very scary. And I think a proclamation like this is what's needed, and it brings a level of comfort and love. And I think Pride is not infringing on other people's rights or religion. It's showing love, compassion, tolerance, and acceptance. And I think that's what our community needs, especially when it is a hard time like it is now. And I appreciate her stepping up for what's right and being on the right side of history. So thank you.
Inez, you're next. You have 3 minutes.
So this is my first time here and ever talking like this, and I did not prepare anything quite as well as this. But I wanted to come up here and just also thank you, Mayor Clark, for the Pride Proclamation. I am also a mom. I have a 4-year-old and a 2, almost 4 and almost 2. And I just know that no matter what, I love them. And like you had said, love wins. My shirt says equality hurts no one. I think it's just really important in these times when there are, and I'm seeing them, and it just baffles my mind, all of the hateful messages about this, that everybody feel included. There is no reason for people to not feel loved and included, and if you don't agree with what they're doing, then that's okay, but you don't need to. You need to just do what you need to do and let them be, because love wins, and yes, I agree with all of that. I also just wanted to talk about the gun proclamation. Again, as a mom, I know that the leading cause of death for children and teens is gun violence. So with my kids getting ready to go to school, like I am deathly afraid of them going into school and for really going to any events. So just, again, making that awareness about gun violence is really important. So I want to thank you for both of those. Thank you.
Melissa Easley, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Clark and Commissioners. My name is Melissa Easley, and I proudly serve as the elected CMS School Board member for District 1, which includes Hunterville. While I'm not here on behalf of CMS tonight, I want to be crystal clear about something. I'm not an outsider speaking about a town issue. I live here. My kids go to school here. We grocery shop here. Even though my mailing address may not have Huntersville, my entire life revolves around Huntersville. Tonight I want to thank Mayor Clark. Thank you for this proclamation and for taking a clear stand, even when others didn't. This gesture matters, not because it's symbolic, but because it's a public declaration that LGBTQ people belong in Huntersville, and we are part of that town fabric, and that we are not going anywhere. I'm the first openly LGBTQ person elected to the CMS School Board. I didn't run to make headlines, I ran to make change. But visibility does matter. And when a town leader says you are seen, you are valued, you are welcome, that carries weight, especially when others choose to remain silent. Let's be honest, the backlash to this proclamation and Huntersville Pride has been loud, ugly, and predictable. The same recycled fear tactics, the same attempt to paint inclusion as dangerous or decisive. Let me be very clear, inclusion is not a threat, bigotry is. This proclamation is not about special treatment. It's about pushing an agenda about safety, dignity, and belonging. It costs nothing to say you matter, but it means everything to those of us who have had to fight for our existence openly in our own communities. I'm organizing the inaugural Huntersville Pride later this month because I believe in this town. I believe that it can live up to its values, not just during Pride Month, but year-round. This event needs to be a celebration of joy, family, and community, the kind of celebration that every town should be proud to host. But let me be clear, the work does not stop here. A proclamation is a start, not a finish line. Support for the LGBTQ community must show up consistently in leadership, in policy, and action, not just when it's safe, not just when it's convenient, and not just when it's politically motivated. We are watching, we are listening, we are organizing, and we will keep showing up in this room and at the ballot box until every person in Huntersville feels truly seen, supported, and a place that they can feel safe calling home. Thank you.
Reverend Sharon Risher, you have 3 minutes. Just come to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, for your proclamation concerning gun violence. My name is Reverend Risher. 10 years ago, on June 17, 2015, a young white supremacist walked into Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, killing 9 people, which included my mother, 2 cousins, and a childhood friend. I want you to know that in the 10 years, my family have gone through changes, all the other 8 families also. We know what hate could cause. We see the chaos that's going in this country. I want to remind you that no one is immune from gun violence. I pray that you would never have to go through the experience that I had to go through in burying my mother and to know why she was killed. So thank you again, Christy Clark. We have advocated together, stood together, cried together. I am so very proud to call her my friend and advocate. Thank you, Mayor Clark, for Huntersville. Thank you.
Pam Schmitz, you have 3 minutes.
I'm Pam Schmitz. I have lived in Huntersville for over 20 years. I work in Child Protective Services, and so both of these issues come up with all the kids that we work with, kids that have struggled with their identities, their sexuality, just being mistreated for who they are or not feeling safe to be who they are. In my field, whenever we're working with foster homes, when we want to go in and assess them, we ask them, do you have a firearm in this home? If so, let me see how it is stored. And it has to be stored, locked up, out of reach, very secure. Because, as mentioned earlier, the largest cause of death for children in our country is firearms. So I really appreciate that these items have been acknowledged in our town, that we are willing to raise these issues. It just puts it out there to make it normal to talk about these things, to recognize the issues around them, to recognize that people are here in all of their forms, in all their glory, and we want to keep them alive that way. And I appreciate you raising these issues and these proclamations, and thank you so much.
Item that concludes our public comments today. We're on to item number 7, agenda changes and adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
And is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Public hearings. Item 9A, conduct a public hearing on petition R25-04 Holbrook Phase 2. Mr. Priest.
And I guess the first thing I need to do is put my staff report into the record because last time I didn't and I got caught. So I apologize for that. Thank you very much. So R2504 is called the Holbrook Phase 2, and this is a conditional rezoning application that has been submitted, and the applicant is North State Development. So the property is here in the hatched area, right to the west of where we are right now. So it's a rezoning application from neighborhood residential to town center conditional district. And the application is for a mixed-use building with some commercial on the first floor along Gilead Road, and then apartment residential units the rest of the back of the first floor and the second through fourth floor. Here's a context map to just paint a picture of where we are downtown. So the site is located and labeled in red. The town center building is there to the south of Gilead Road. You see the new town hall, the downtown greenway is immediately to the back of the site. 760 Craftworks is immediately to the east on the right-hand side building. Holbrook Park is immediately to the north there. So just some rezoning plan highlights there. This is a somewhat of a unique application request in that there are two options or site plan ways that this could develop. The first is how you see on the top where the driveway for the development would share access with 760 Craftworks, the brewery, immediately to the east there. And then option 2 would be the building would be a little bit skinnier, and then they would have a driveway all to itself. But the parking would all be accommodated on the lot. So the total building square footage is estimated 60,000 square feet. The shopfront building type requirements require that 60% of that first floor be commercial. So that comes out to about 9,000 square feet there. And I put asterisks on there because the applicants are looking for a modification. We can discuss that in just a moment. So 55 total residential units are proposed for a density of 31.8 units per acre. And then again, all parking is accommodated on site. So for the application, there are a few modifications to the ordinance that are being requested. I won't go through all of them, but just a quick reference here. Staff is support or can be in support of most of them. The one that we do have a difference of opinion is the bottom one regarding a main pedestrian entrance along Gilead Road. And at the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to answer any questions about these modification requests. And just another list of some of the items that we're still working through with the applicant, one of which is we'd like to get some building elevations submitted that gives us an idea of what the front and then also the side is going to look like to discuss the massing adjacent to the single-family residential home to the west. The 2040 Huntersville Community Plan. So the character area, this includes the downtown, but it's the mixed-use center. So this is essentially where you're going to expect to have the most intensity, commercial use, mixed use buildings, and the description down on the bottom of the slide, it actually specifically says mixed use centers, vertical mixed use, and that's exactly what this development is. So in this location in the downtown area is where you would expect to find this type of development. So policies of the 2040 plan, got a green check mark. This is where staff is just calling out. This is kind of hitting the nail on the head. The policies that are being met by this application, going down and just paying attention there on the bottom. Policy EV, economic vitality, 2.2 and 2.3, leveraging downtown as a unique destination and attracting business to the downtown. So that's something, as we all know, that we're looking forward to growing here, having businesses in the downtown, and so having commercial on the first floor along Gilead Road would hit the nail on the head on that one. But then also policy DT11, to have businesses, you've got to have residential in the downtown as well. So having an apartment building and having that mixed-use component would meet that policy as well. Policies, and this is just a list that are still kind of a work in progress. We're working with the applicant on design changes to somewhat meet these policies. They're there and they're in the staff report. Again, be happy to answer any questions that you have regarding that. The one policy that kind of bleeds over into the downtown plan that I'll mention as well is policy DT1. There's a policy that says, well, use this downtown regulating plan for your heavy intensity, your activity areas. So in the map shown, the parcel in question is kind of a greenish color, so it's more of an open space type park-like use. And so that policy kind of keeps this area a little bit more natural, probably hinting at the possibility of Holbrook Park from the south expanding toward Gilead Road. So that kind of brings us to the downtown plan. The downtown plan kind of has a mix of recommendations in regard to the area. So on the top, what we have, there's a map called Initial Considerations. And this map kind of gives ideas of what can take place in the downtown area. Again, the downtown plan kind of zooms in. 2040 plan is a little bit bigger. Downtown plan zooms in a little bit more with specific recommendations. One of the recommendations here, number 3, on this initial considerations aspect, was to think about the possibility, or it says explore, the potential acquisition of the properties to expand Holbrook Park, to have trails and perhaps make use of that along Gilead Road. So that was an option. However, when it comes to the actual land use recommendations, the key recommendations there on the bottom, the organizing principles of the downtown plan, this property, as well as the property to the west, is always in a recommendation to be in an area where there's commercial, where there's intensity. So the opportunity is discussed about expanding the park. Staff sees this potential opportunity for Gilead Road to be a really great place to really put that commercial use that we're really looking for in the downtown. And here's the policy that we're kind of latching onto, the gathering aspect. Having a destination, why do you have a downtown? Well, there's people who are going there to gather. There's a purpose. I especially like the component and the policy at the very end, the last bullet point. Establish a downtown that supports and encourages the creation of rituals from one person to 1,000 people. So why do people come to downtown? They come for services. They come for walkability. They come for the ability to enjoy open space, and that's a part of it. Parks are a part of it, but businesses certainly are as well. So this is a constant recommendation of the downtown plan, so staff really supports the mixed use gathering component of the plan here. So recommendations, staff supports this premise of a mixed-use building at this location. However, there's design aspects, modifications, elevations, massing, and excellence design that we're still working with the applicant on. Be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here and does have some slides for you as well when you'd like.
Board, do you have any questions for staff? Commissioner Bursman?
Hey, Brad. I want to talk about the buffer modification for a minute. Can you tell us a little bit about why it's asked for or necessary or needed?
Sure. So the town actually did an ordinance change not too long ago in regard to multifamily homes, apartment buildings, right? And so there's aspects of sometimes when you had one building, one lot, and it wasn't a subdivision, there was no buffer required for multifamily homes and apartment buildings. So the text amendment inserted 9.64, which requires a buffer based on density of the adjacent use. So when you have a development, I've highlighted here, when you have a development that's 31 units per acre next to a single-family home, that's kind of the maximum buffer depth, right? So that's 40 feet. It's a 40-foot requirement. The situation is, and this is something that we're drafting a staff report for, When you're in a downtown, you generally have a mix of uses that don't necessarily have big buffers. Matter of fact, currently in Chapter 7 of our ordinance, where most of our buffer standards are, you don't have any buffers at all that apply in the TC district. But here you do specifically for multifamily homes, so this one does apply because of the density difference. Therefore, staff is kind of supportive of that buffer modification, but again, we've also got that massing issue that we're working with the applicant on the elevations, what kind of landscaping is put in there to soften the difference there, and so that's a consideration as well.
I think, and then I have just one more question for right now. And you mentioned massing, so thank you for the segue. And I know you're kind of still waiting on some information, but when it's being evaluated, because I know across the street is Phase 1, we've got Town Hall, which is, multi-levels around the corner, but the immediately adjacent neighbors to the left and right are relatively, shorter buildings, for lack of a better word. How are we determining, or how is staff determining whether it's kind of in line with massing of the surrounding buildings when there's such variety?
Well, from an architectural standpoint, the ordinance kind of gets into that. It gives the ability for an applicant to show compatibility with adjacent structures, even if it's out of context. In this situation, it's a huge building, so much taller, so much bigger, but they can show context by varying their massing, by changing the height immediately next to the building. So architecturally, from a by right standpoint, if they walked in the door and said, hey, we want to do this, but they showed those architectural components in an effort to show compatibility, they could do that. So in this situation, talking with the applicant, that might not be an option. It might be, we don't know, because we haven't gotten those full submittal of the elevations. But if they don't, that's when, in the staff report, a modification would be needed in that regard. The other element in this that staff is considering is, again, as was mentioned, both this property and the property adjacent is in that pink area where in the future commercial development could be appropriate. So the massing issue in general could be temporary. It could go away when the other property potentially develops, but right now it's not. It's a single-family home, and so that relationship still exists. So there's a lot of elements to that we're still working through. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I like the residential density of this project, especially for our downtown. In the staff report, it said that you all are determining whether a TIA is required for this project, and it's under review with the staff. What would determine if a TIA is needed?
So they are working through the engineering department, and they did a scope of that, and so it was reviewed by engineering staff, and I don't know all the details. Perhaps Stephen could get into the details on that, but gave some feedback back and is waiting on a resubmittal to be able to make a determination on that.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment because as we work to revitalize our downtown, I just think this is the project that will hit the target. I really like the project.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Dumas?
If we approve this project, are there other avenues for expanding Holbrook Park?
There are other avenues that were discussed in going to the east with trails. If you look at and here's the difference between this property, in my opinion, and the other properties to the east along 115. On 115, those properties are a little bit more challenged with topography, where trails and nature areas are a little bit more permissible. Here is a lot more, for lack of a better word, pad ready for commercial and development. So that's a little bit more practical on the practical side for that side. So on the east side, talking with the Park and Rec director, that seems to be a better opportunity to be able to expand more to the east rather than to Gilead Road.
Okay, thank you. I saw a note that staff recommends more frontage space. Where does that stand?
So we're still going to get an updated submittal from the applicant and see where they're doing on the notes and so forth, and what's the free and clear. That's still being negotiated. What we're worried about is just making sure that the outdoor seating doesn't encroach too much, so there's too much of a squeezed area for pedestrians, considering it's a downtown. You want that outdoor seating, you want a balance there, but at the same time, you want a nice, comfortable walk for people, for two people to walk back and forth. And so that's kind of what we're working through. And so the recommendation is about 8 feet. Maybe it gives a take a foot or so, but that's in the realm of what we're looking to do.
Okay, thank you. And then one more for you. Help me understand the concern with the pedestrian entrance. Why do we require a front entrance, and why would we not be okay with having it in the back, I guess?
So the pedestrian entrance is kind of been the difference maker. That I could write a book on this, actually. But it started 40 years ago. Well, it really did. I mean, back in 1996, when we adopted our ordinance, it was a very unique ordinance in regard to requiring a pedestrian entrance in the front. And it's the market, it's a difficult mesh sometimes, because what you see in Charlotte, what you see in other municipalities is the front is the parking lot side. And the parking is in the front, the building's in the back, and everybody parks in the front. What the Huntersville ordinance does is flips that and puts the building on the street and creates a requirement to have a door on the street. So you set up a design that can be very walkable. And if you set it up that way and you require sidewalks and there's connections for sidewalks, it becomes a walkable development. And you get in that way. If you put a parking lot in the front and you put your building in the back, you have to walk through the parking lot. It becomes very uncomfortable. So you don't do that. But at the same time, if you put the building in the front and the parking in the back, but you can't get in the building and you have to walk around, it's still not very, you just defeated the purpose of the whole change. So what the Huntersville ordinance says is set it up so that you have an entrance along the street. So you create that ability for everyone in the building to be able to get where they want to go from the street side. And that's the purpose of that requirement.
Any other questions? All right, we'll have the petitioner. Just want to, petitioners have 15-minute time limit. I just want to remind you of that as you proceed.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for the staff report. I am Rachel Krenz, and I am with the Lanyap Group, who has been engaged by North State Development to manage the development of this project. Shane Siegel, the owner of North State Development, is out of the country and was not able to move his flight, and he's very upset about it. He's watching right now. Sorry, Shane. But he is available anytime anybody wants to talk about this project. But I am running point on it anyway, so I'm happy to give this presentation. That was the intent from the start. You can see the development team logos up there. Tess is here. She's with W&A, who's a civil engineer and landscape architect and been doing all the rezoning plans. So if we have any questions that are technical, we'll lean on her. There's obviously a lot of other people behind this project that I won't go into, but my email is at the bottom of this. So if anybody has any follow-up questions, this is public record, but you can find me there to reach out, and happy to talk with anyone whenever. So we've had a bunch of different meetings. So some of you guys have already seen some of these slides, but we've added a couple more clarifications in here. So hopefully it's not too repetitive. But I just wanted to kind of restate what Brad was saying, that currently we are zoned NR. And so technically we could develop the property. We don't have it, we haven't bought the property yet. It's under contract. As soon as we get this rezoning approved, then we would purchase the property. And we could, upon purchasing it, develop it as all residential under its existing zoning. But like Brad and a lot of you have said, this site is, the heart of downtown on downtown's Main Street vibe, and we want to put retail there, and it's not allowed in the current zoning. So that's why we have gone down this path, is to make sure that we can do this mixed-use, desirable building here. We talked about the two different plans, so I won't go into those since Brad hit on them, but I will say that the difference between the two is that one is a shared driveway off of our property, and one is a driveway on our property. We need the ability to be able to develop this property should we not come to a final agreement with the 760 on how that shared agreement works. We all want that to be the plan in many ways. I think it's a great plan to reduce as many vehicular curb cuts as you can on a main street, but there's a lot of complications there. I'm happy to talk with anyone about it, but we need to know that we can get that done. And if not, then we would have to develop it all within our property. The plans that you see up there are the latest of our submittal. Part of the issue here is that Brad had to report on an older submittal. We have had so many meetings, and I am so thankful for all of you for meeting, as well as all the staff. It's been some really good, transparent conversations. So we have updated our plan, and so everything I'm going to talk about now is based on the new plan that we would, in theory, submit tomorrow. We have emailed a lot of this language and plans, and we've shown elevations and all the things that are missing in the staff report. We're in discussions on it, just hasn't formally been submitted. So hopefully I can clarify some things here. But between these two plans, the only difference is the driveway. We have made them to be consistent on all the other terms, so that it's really just about whether the driveway can be on another property or not. The first thing I did when looking at redevelopment of this is look at the downtown master plan, and I just pulled a few specific quotes from the downtown master plan, that 31 of them, they're color-coded by the organizing principles. There are a lot of things that we are doing to basically bring the downtown master plan to life. Like, this is the whole intent of what we're doing, is trying to bring that to life. So you can read through that all later. Okay, so I'm gonna go into a few clarifications of things that might not have been clear because of the old submittal. So we are actively working to design the site. I should go back real quick on this plan. On the left side, of the western side of the property, there are some really awesome mature trees there. In the submittal right now, working through it with staff, and Tessa can go into this in more detail if people want to talk about it, those trees would, we were hoping to save them. They were recommended by staff is likely not going to be able to be saved by the amount of construction that's happening here. So to be transparent and to reduce our liability, it says in there that they would potentially be removed. We have engaged a tree consultant, Heartwood, who will be on site on Friday to start their assessment process and come up with a way that we can save them, so we can work around it. So it is in our interest to keep those trees. Now, I won't lie to you, we are not planning to preserve trees on the back side of the property. There is a parking lot there, and the trees, when we overlay this tree survey, you can't really get a tree and make the parking efficiently work. So we are planning to get rid of some of the trees, but the ones that are along Gilead and the western boundary, we're actively trying to save those. So we'll continue to do that, but want to be as transparent as possible so that you're not upset if one of them doesn't make it or something happens with that. So going back to that, that's the tree topic. On the pedestrian paths, on the right is showing all the pedestrian paths in this block, that after our project is developed, all of the red would be places that people can walk, in a formal sense. Of course, we never walk in a straight line, and people will walk all over, but these are the dedicated pedestrian paths. When we submitted our last submittal, we had one connection to the Greenway, so we were making a connection. But now you'll see that there are actually 3 different ways that you can cross the eastern boundary. That eastern boundary is only 393 feet, which is smaller than an uptown block, and we have 3 ways of crossing it by pedestrian. So we're, in my opinion, going above and beyond to make sure pedestrian connectivity is maintained here. The pedestrian connectivity isn't just important, for getting back to the Greenway and the park, which of course it is, but it's also in relation to 760 and the brewery, and making sure that when somebody comes to visit downtown, like, they can come and have a beer, and then they can go out to eat, and they can go, and you want people to be able to walk between all of them. And so part of the discussions with the 760 owners is the shared driveway, but it's also just working together to make sure that both of the businesses here succeed and are set up so that when people come to downtown, they can walk between the 2 properties well. So not just on a pedestrian sidewalk, but just the connectivity of making people want to walk across the street. So for example, on the corner of our building, we would have an outdoor patio and a restaurant right there. So imagine being able to sit outside the brewery and the picnic tables, and then also be at a restaurant and having all that activity. So this will be a big node for downtown. So while 0 open space is required by code, we are providing at least a 17-foot deep urban plaza along Gilead Street. You can see the deeper red there. We're also doing a resident activated open space in the middle. That would be things like, it could be grills, a fire pit, an edible garden, a couple different things that we're exploring there. And then also the pedestrian connections to the greenway is there as well. I don't know if I had this later on, so I'll just want to mention on the whole sidewalk, 17 foot deep in the outdoor dining, we are totally on board with staff of wanting to have the pedestrian experience and also having outdoor dining. And so the 8 foot pedestrian clear is fine. It's just a language issue that we have not written that properly, but we want people to walk by. We want them to support our businesses, and we also want to have it activated with outdoor dining. And so there's a way to make that work within 17 feet. So that, I don't think that's an issue. That's outstanding. I mean, it is outstanding. Technically, we need to submit it, but we're good. And on the buffer, people get really confused on buffer versus setback, and so I just wanted to address that. So the 40-foot buffer, a buffer is like an undisturbed area. There is no way that this site could be developed for the current landowner could not sell the site for what they're selling it for and develop it by having a 40-foot setback that's not disturbed at all. Like, that's just not feasible to do a mixed-use building like that, economically and physically. And so the 10-foot setback is being supported by staff because of the downtown area, but we understand, the Ingalls, they're here. We've had a couple conversations with them that it is an impact. I mean, we're doing a pretty large construction development right next to them. So the intent of that ordinance is still there and still important. So what we have done is we have offered to do a building setback, which is not required. So the building setback is 30 feet. And in addition to that, we will plan to do more landscaping than is required in a buffer. But I want to be clear that even though the buffer is 10 feet, that doesn't mean that our landscaping will be 10 feet. Like, we need to be able, we don't want a disturbed area where we can't, touch anything on that area. We want to be able to improve it. We want to be able to make changes. So you can see like the 10 foot on there might be, a row of trees, but we might have 20 or 25 feet of landscaping. So we intend to respect that boundary in general of what the intent of the buffer is. And the commitment in paper is the setback and the additional landscaping. Also, we've offered to put a fence in for the Ingalls per their request too, just so that people aren't trespassing on their property, or, what we've said is whatever fence you want, you tell us, we'll put it on there. So the idea here is that while we are on paper, it appears that we're not meeting the ordinance intent. I'm hopeful that you all see we are trying to meet the intent of it, of respecting the difference between a larger building and a smaller building. On the massing side, there's no way around it. It's a 4-story building. It is a 4-story building next to a 2-story building. So I can't, there's no way to step back the building, and I don't think that actually solves the problem. So we are not doing a step back of the building, but we're, doing an attractive exterior, and we're doing that setback to kind of address some of that. I'm going to run out of time. I didn't bring a clock up here. So on the main pedestrian entrance, we can technically do it. We just think it's bad practice for this project specifically. I have my master's in city planning, and I will geek out all day long on building entrances and main streets, and I totally agree with what Brad's saying. In general, you want to have as many entrances on the street front. But I want to explain why we're asking for a difference here so that you guys can understand. So let's just say this is the building footprint. I did this in PowerPoint from an architectural, so it's not a real plan. Our architect laughed at me, but the orange and blue are units and the red is retail. So let's assume this is likely how our plan's going to go. That's how I've done it in PowerPoint because it's the intent. But the green is our resident entrance. So someone coming from the parking lot late at night goes into the entrance there. We will have 4 entrances along there for retail. So it is not that it's not an active, frontage of a building. There are 4 main entrances there. If we interpret the code to say it has to be a resident entrance as opposed to a retail entrance, then we'll have to bring a corridor through, and then we can put an entrance on there. When you do that, it really hurts the retail leasing. So not only will we have less retail area because of the yellow that's coming through there, but now we have 3 suites as opposed to 4 suites, and they're awkward square footages that don't work for what is out there to lease to. And so we don't want to do it because we don't think it actually gets to what we want for the downtown. We want to have it all be downtown, retail's right there in the front, but also it's a small building. If it's a really long building, I agree you have to have a resident entrance, but it's a short building. The walk around is not that hard, and we've created this really welcoming pedestrian environment for the whole purpose of walking around the entire block, not just on Gilead. So we've talked with a lot of commissioners about it and said, do you want more retail or do you want the resident entrance? And for the most part, the ones that have answered, all the ones that have answered have said they're retail. And so we are asking for it because we think that it's best for the project. If ultimately you guys don't want to do that, we can. It's just going to mean that we have to commit to less retail there because we're going to be bringing the resident through. So that explains that one. I also, I know there's this whole issue on the retail gross square feet and the percentage. The ordinance reads that you need 60% of the gross square feet of the building footprint to be retail, to be commercial, and it can't share any other space with another use. It has to be all commercial. We are asking for a modification for it to share back of house. Just a building in general is more efficient if you're sharing space. So I'm gonna give a quick example. Let's say this building is 17,000 square feet and the commercial is 60%, so it's 10,200. On the left is if we don't share back of house. So you've got the 9,700 of commercial rentable square feet, and then you have the commercial back of house is 500. That's how we get to the 10,200, so it's 60%. If I have zero shared back of house, my rentable square foot is just gonna be lower because I have to give it to the back of house. But if I share it and I put a residential, so I'm literally talking about an electrical room that's 300 square feet, I could put one electrical panel here and one here in the room, or I could build two separate rooms and just be redundant, and that means we have less rentable square feet. So I just think that it's not getting to the intent of having more rentable square feet and having more active space. So we're happy to commit to the 60%, but we would like to be able to share the back of house if commercial and residential are overlapping. That would include things like a mechanical room, electrical room, a trash room. I think that's it. So that's the request. If we want to rewrite it in a different way and you want us to do a different percentage, we could do that however you want, but I want to make sure it's transparent because I know there's been some miscommunication along that, but that's the modification that we have asked for and happy to adjust that as needed. No.
How more slides do you have?
2.
Okay, keep going.
Elevations, I think most people have seen them. We've shown them in community meetings and we've sent them, but they're not formally submitted. So we had all those community benefits that we talked about just a minute ago, but I wanted to also point out that we've committed to architectural design commitments. We've also committed to designing the building to a green building standard. It's called NGBS, National Green Building Standard. It's like LEED is for office, but for residential. And then we were already planning to do public art, but there was a lot of excitement around that, and so we wanted to make sure it was committed in here written that like we will definitely have public art on site. And I will stop there. I skipped some things, but hopefully that gives you enough clarifications, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Dumas?
Thank you for clarifying some of the questions from earlier. That was helpful and probably time-saving. I know that we talked at some point about the parking spaces. So I would like to revisit that a little bit. So when we talked, you were talking about the fact that it's hard to find people to lease the space if you don't have designated parking. I get that, I understand that. I guess we have on our future plans to build a public garage in the downtown area in the next few years. Is it possible that we can revisit that in the future? And because I think in the downtown it would be much better to have open parking all over. I understand some like residential saved spots, but I would love to see more like open parking across the downtown. So would you be willing to consider that when the garage is built?
Definitely. I mean, I've talked with a couple of you guys that I think downtown needs a parking strategy and an overall shared parking model for the whole thing. And so I think that's for the best of downtown, which in turn is best for this asset. So yeah, we we're definitely open to that. It's just right now, it's not possible for us to make any commitment to that because we need to have a lease sign that says there is parking for, for your tenants. I mean, nobody here is going to go to a business if they can't park right by it, or near it. So if there's not parking somewhere to offset it, then we can't commit to anything. But that's not to say that when there's a global parking strategy that we wouldn't be a party of it, and we're fully supportive of that.
Okay, thank you.
Would you commit to even just one attainable unit?
I will not answer that question without Shane here, so I'll get back to you on that. I personally have some concerns about that. I do asset management for a variety of multifamily projects, and those that have a decent amount of, like a higher quantity of attainable units, they actually lease for the purposes of a lower income. And those that have a handful of them, they don't. And part of the reason for that is because you're marketing a market rate project, and so it's really hard to find that person to actually lease it. So if you look at a lot of case studies, that doesn't get to the purpose of it, and it causes a lot of headache. But I am supportive of it conceptually if we can find a way to make the marketing and the piece of that. The problem on this is that this, even though it feels really big relative to a two-story home, the problem is that it's a really small project when it comes for a commercial capital investment. So having 50 to 55 units and 9 to 10,000 square feet of retail is really hard to capitalize in this submarket and in this economy. And so every dollar that we are adjusting, whether it be on cost or whether it be on revenue, has a major hit. Like it's a bigger swing on this size of our project. And so those are things that we're weighing right now is how much money, like, for example, just to lay all the cards on the table, like 760, we have to relocate all of these utilities and build out a whole new driveway and build out the brewery. Like that's a lot of cost and a lot of complication to figure that out. We really believe in it. We want to do it. So we're trying to figure out how the logistics of that works out. That's a lot of money. And so you spend all this money on that, and then you take away the revenue on something else. And so there's a game that we're playing on the economics to make sure it stays financeable. But I don't think it's like totally, I think we can talk about it a little bit more. But hopefully that gives you some background. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dumas.
How much will the rent be on these units?
There is no way I can tell you that for when it opens, but I can say that it will be similar to comparable projects like the Holbrook across the street. It's
okay. I guess like I would love to see more diversity of price options in the downtown area. The Holbrook is beautiful, but I think it's intended for somebody who makes a decent amount of money. And so my preference would be to do something like smaller units or, even more units that are smaller and at a lower price point.
Will you build me a parking deck so that I can park more units in it? And truthfully, is there public financing to support that? Because the rents to pay for that building are going to be market rate. And so while I agree that having a diversity of unit types is important, I can't build that building with all these extra things and get it to be lower rent. So, this invitation is open to anyone. I'm happy to show a performance, like a generic form of how that works, because I think part of the difficulty is you see a developer like, I can't afford it, it doesn't make sense, and it seems kind of like a cop-out. But I'm happy to show you of how it plays out in our performa and sit down and have a workshop with anyone that wants to help understand that, the push and pull, because you might be asking for a push here and it hurts a pull here and you may not want that. And so it could be a dialogue that we could have on it. But I think it's unlikely that we would be able to get more units with the amount of parking that we have and the cost of construction. So that's my gut right now on it.
And what's the total amount of units for a specific one?
It's somewhere between 50 and 55. We've asked for a max of 55, but it's likely going to be 50.
And across the street, you have how many units currently?
186.
And how many are currently occupied at this moment?
Gosh, I don't know the number to that. The only thing I can say is that the leasing velocity is the same as like comparable property, like it's leasing well. But I don't remember the percentage.
Okay, thank you.
It's on track for what it should be, I guess is a way to put it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I had originally heard a while back that it was going to be a little smaller, like 30 apartments or so. Has that number changed over the process? Oops.
No, I think it's actually gotten smaller.
Okay. Oh, when you cut back the floor?
So I think I wasn't a part of it in the first conceptual studies, but there were 2 buildings or 3 buildings. So they were trying to get more units and trying to get parking under the building at one point so that you could get more units. But the cost didn't work out to do that. So it's actually been reduced to make it actually financeable. But I don't know where the 30 came from, so I'm not sure. Sorry.
That's okay. It could just be there. And also, what's the do you have an idea of what the breakdown would be between like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or will there be studios or what's?
I don't have that breakdown because we haven't done the full design of this. Like, we're just doing conceptual because you don't, a project budget before you go to start construction could be like $1 million, $1.5 million for a site of this size. We're not going to pay the $500,000 to get halfway through the project before we know if it's rezoned for what we're designing it for. So that's not typically a risk we'll take. We have done conceptual studies for it to test out what would fit so we could do our underwriting. And the 50 to 55, that range is whether or not you have studios or 2 bedrooms, more, of one or the other. But we're likely going to lean more on 2 bedrooms. That's what our market research is telling us so far. What's nice about 2 bedrooms is that they can be roommate plans, so they can be price point driven for somebody that's, the diversity of units that you're getting at. That's a diversity of residents, maybe not a diversity of units, but it allows for roommate plans, and then it also allows for the older demographic that we're seeing a ton of traffic on, folks that are married and have, want to have two rooms, like an office or something like that. So that gives the ability to go both ways. That gives them this flexibility as downtown kind of evolves. So we're leaning on more 2 bedrooms. And whether or not there's 5 studios, 5 1-bedrooms, and 10, we don't know the exact unit mix. It's kind of playing out. But 2 bedrooms is the push for us.
And on the pedestrian access from the front, I personally, I'm okay with that modification. That's not an issue. What I do have a concern with is having 2 options, because I don't like option 2 for a variety of reasons. Do you think that by the time this comes back to us, that will be narrowed down? Is that something that you can?
I would love for it to be. That would be great. We're trying, but I'm not sure if that will happen or not, but potentially. But I guess I would say, if we can't resolve it, like to figure that out and all the logistics of that. So we've just engaged a general contractor. You don't normally have a general contractor engage this early on. So we had to bring somebody on to figure out, how do we actually do that? There's power and gas and water and sewer and low voltage all where the driveway would go. So it's way more complicated than just a swag number of this is what it costs to build it. And so we've now got somebody engaged to really give us a number. We're talking with 760. We finally were able to give them, some more feedback on that. So I'm hopeful. I think that would be really great if we could, but I don't want to promise something that if it doesn't happen, you guys are not able to support the other plan. So if we never had proposed that plan and we went through with developing just the property, I would like for you to think about it that way too, so that if it doesn't happen with 760, then you've thought through that alternative.
Yeah, I get that. But just definitely, just so you know where I'm at, yeah, there's a couple of reasons I don't like it. And one is the driveway, but there are some others too. And I know that, are there additional complications other than the utilities and all the lines? Is there something else, or is it really all that? Because I know that impacted 760 and the placement of their driveway.
Yeah. No, that is the big time suck of trying to solve that. The other big component of it is that we'll be taking away part of their outdoor area, and that impacts their business, and so we have to pay them to make it fair for them, and so there's an agreement to be made with them as well. There's also improvements to be made. There's the construction cost of whenever you change, when you remove the driveway that's there now and you put it into a new format for them, we need to understand what that improvement is in order to budget it and figure out the logistics of that too. So there's just more coordination with 760 on that.
Yeah, I guess just keep working on that.
Yeah.
Because from my, the way I'm looking at this, this is a very important part of our downtown. So we want to get it right.
Yeah.
This might be for staff. You mentioned the 4 entrance for the commercial buildings or retail. What makes this different than 760? Because 760 have a retail or commercial entrance on the street, and we're looking to do possibly 4 of the same of a 760.
Sorry, I was a little tight in there.
Yeah, so 760, they have a main access directing on the street, so you can get into the whole building through that front door. The difference here being, 85% of the building, the residents won't be able to access from the street. They'll have to walk around to the back of the building to get into the building rather than coming out the front.
So it's mainly residents versus...
A small portion would have access to the street, the majority would not. And the ordinance is the main pedestrian access. And in a downtown setting, yeah, that's just staff's own principle on that.
Can we go back to the option A and B slide, please?
I added animation here, sorry. Wanted to hold suspense. Okay.
Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. The shared driveway side, so it'll be with 760, and then the other side, the driveway would be adjacent to the Ingalls property. And so we're going to put a fence there, but how will we prevent them from being disturbed by like car lights going in and out and various things like that? Like we've had that happen on other projects where during the construction and I think during the livability, people's lights are shining into other people's homes and it's causing problems.
Yeah.
So what strategy will we take there to prevent them from being further disturbed by that?
That's a good question. We haven't fully thought about that, I guess because the main direction of the car is not towards the house, so I didn't think about that. But maybe when they're turning in, so it might be something that we could just look at to see the direction of like, do people turning in? I mean, I'm open to whatever they want. We could put a barrier, like instead of a transparent fence, we could put more of a wall or something, I leave that to them to tell me what you guys want on that regard. We're open to it. And we did study the road on the other side, and it was not preferred by staff, just with, 2 curb cuts near each other. There are 3 or 4 curb cuts there today, I can't remember. So it would be going down to 2, so it is reduced. But having them right next to each other might pose some conflicts, so they suggested that. And I also thought it would be beneficial to have more setback, but I don't know if that's actually a true benefit for them.
I think one thing to consider would be if that ends up being the alternative, is that it's back-in parking only on that side. So when people have to park there, they have to back in and their lights won't shine in the direction of their house. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Though I think it's the opposite.
Yeah. Or they can't
Needs to
back
be
in.
front
Sorry.
end.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
right.
okay.
Opposite reverse
Yeah.
what I said. But yeah, so they can't.
That's a good point. Yeah, we could do something like that, some signage.
Okay.
I'll write that down.
Commissioner Dumas.
Sorry, one more. You mentioned earlier that, or you pointed out that this piece of land is zoned as residential. So if we find out that we can't do option A and some of us are wavering on option B, will you be moving forward with a residential only option?
I don't know the answer to that. Shane will have to answer that. His interest as the owner of the company is to deliver a mixed-use building for downtown. Like, he's got a lot of pride in making sure downtown is, he wants to see it be more activated. And so I'm not sure if he'll want to proceed with that or not.
Okay.
But I will say that...
I'd love to hear from Shane if we could before.
Yeah, I will. I will say that the complication on that, though, is the value of this site is determined by what revenue you can create. And so the purchase price would be less for this land. And I'm venturing to guess that that means that it will not be under contract. So likely we would not be pursuing it because it's less revenue. You don't have the retail revenue as well. So I can probably answer for him now to say it's probably not him, but I don't want to say that straight out.
Questions? Commissioner Bergsman?
Got one more too. So I'm glad that you have that up now, so I can ask you about option B. It looks like the street frontage is less, is that correct? So would the retail be wrapped around the side?
Yeah,
or
our commitment is to make 60% retail, so we would wrap it around. You know, in this plan, you know, when you do these conceptual plans for rezoning, that's not the exact building. Like when we go to design it, we're probably going to pop out towards 760 a little bit for the retail, so we might be able to get a little bit more frontage on Gilead. Like we want to maximize Gilead, so as much as we can, we'll maximize that. And then, yeah, we'd wrap around, and so in order to make, like, that's not ideal. You don't want to have, you want to have all your frontage on the, you know, on the main street from visibility standpoint. It might change our merchandising strategy a little bit of how we think about how we're going to market it, or our signage plan, or wayfinding. We might have bigger protruding signs on the side to make people come in, or we might look at, you know, between 760 and us, if there's not this new road, maybe we make that a whole plaza, and we make it somewhere that pulls people off the street and, you know, put lights there. Like we'll have to do a different design to pull people back into that retail. But yeah, it's still a commitment to 60%.
Okay. But I mean, I do agree that the street frontage is also, for me, one of the better options.
Commissioner Quarles?
I promise I won't say anything after this, but
You can say whatever. It's the
based on
floor.
what Commissioner Dumas said, our ultimate goal is to revitalize downtown. We want to make sure that we have retail downtown. The project is not going to change regardless of which plan A or B. It's going to still be the same project. We're going to have retail downstairs somewhere in the building. Yes. We need to focus on what's going to complement 760, what's going to complement across the street at Holbrook, and things of that nature. So when we start deliberating, I hope we focus on the main goal, which again is to bring some retail, some economic impact downtown. Because heck, I couldn't care less which plan it is, because again, it's going to be retail as well as residential at the end of the day.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Sure, thank you, guys.
We have one public comment. Amy Hallman, I see Mr. Gammon and Ms. Weidman are here, so you have 9 minutes.
Okay. Hello, Amy Hallman, Huntersville. I have a home within respect to this petition. The public hearing.
Amy, can you get a little closer to the mic, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
This public hearing for the proposed rezoning for 106 Gilead should be continued to next month. I'm not against the development, so I hope you'll listen to consider my points. My greatest issue with this petition is all of the uncertainty here, some of which you've already discussed. I'm worried that they or we will get support for community for option 1 and switch to option 2, which has the potential to not be what residents want. And I have stood up here in favor of downtown projects that say one thing and change after. As the developer has said, 60% commercial works with option 1, easy, and that option 2 makes getting 60% more challenging because that building is flipped. With the original town center project, we got somewhere between 17 and 29% commercial space with an ordinance of 50%, because the longest portion of the building was not fronting Gilead. This is a detail too great to leave to chance. I will add that the shopfront ordinance was also changed after the town center decision to up the commercial from 50 to 60% for a reason. We rely on the commercial development, and the residential developers are the ones coming in. Tonight's petition includes 60,000 square feet of development with 8,500 to 9,000 of it commercial. I told Shane and Rachel that I'm okay with option 1 because the project that shares the drive with 760 resolves several problems. One being also that 760 would have more open space without a driveway in the middle. But option 2 is not interchangeable. It is not the same or similar. It should not be considered as such. Option 2's driveway is going to be an immense lifestyle change to the Ingalls, trust me. Since no one can require 760 to participate, this decision should not be approved with or without 760. That is a significant change. If they can't make it work, they can't make it work. This is not up to us or the town to make concessions. This is why the public hearing should be continued. The staff reports reference a few times that the 2040 plan and the downtown master plan's suggestion of a connection to the park, and even says a primary gathering place would be with open space and connectivity to walk through the park. A predominant apartment building is not exactly a gathering place. It's a start, but are we just starting? The staff report makes a great leap to say that in both places, in the 2040 plan and the downtown master plan, that despite what is printed on those pages, that we don't really mean that Holbrook Park should be expanded, and that the staff knows better, and that we should have further commercial and residential development. Both documents say one thing and staff is saying another. The middle ground, and there is one, should be had. The question becomes, can it be both pedestrian-friendly with connectivity and still be a 50 to 55 unit 4-story apartment complex? The answer is really more than a yes or no. And if you decide that the answer is yes, you will remove the unfinished plan from your plate entirely. And that's not what this board member should do. Policy DT1, this parcel abuts density, but is supposed to be green and open. Have you walked that property? It is stunning. That's probably why it's in the downtown master plan as a park extension. It would be a natural extension, no pun intended, of the Holbrook Park, and if you ponied up for that, you'd get no flack from me. But it is not some 30-year-old policy that staff or we can say is outdated. It isn't. Policy DT 1.1 will work with option 1, but the best option for town is to recommend scaling it down a little bit, save some trees, save some parking if it's scaled down, and to save some access to the park. A side path that skirts a 96-place parking lot isn't the same. The connection to the park makes sense still because they're not saving any trees. Be careful about not cutting any more trees down between them and the park. The staff report also suggests a highly amenitized open space, which in planner speak is not the same as a park. The definition of a highly amenitized open space is a public or private area designated to provide a high level of comfort, convenience, and recreational opportunities for residents and visitors. Thanks, AI. And one of its greatest assets is shade. Is that benches and some street trees? It's a park. Historically, I have supported the developer's project on Maxwell, and I'm that close to this one. The staff and the town board have to take a proposed project and hone it to the best quality project, not unlike editing a paper. While you have a lot of leeway to do that, what's best is not just a diversification in tax base here. And unless the plan is changed, there's still no affordable housing options, although I'm not sure how that's an excellent design principle. They did get creative with the access across the street, and I do, they did get creative with the assistant artist in residence, so I really appreciate that. That was a great job. This project piles 31.8 per acre in density. Next door is a house built in 1884 with a density of 2 per acre. Across the street, the same developer has a density somewhere between 6 to 8 per acre. This explosion in density is exactly what the buffer ordinance was written for. And as staff pointed out tonight, the ordinance was not written in the 90s. It was a text amendment in 2022, literally an ordinance written because of how we started to see development in our downtown. It's 40 feet for a reason. I would ask you, why does the staff report acknowledge throughout 11 pages the questions and not fitting to say at the end, yes, we support it? Our ordinance says the max height is 48 feet, but when the staff recommends 55 because of the surrounding businesses, who's the business? It's the same developer. Don't ever let anyone tell you the decisions you're making aren't setting precedent, because this shows you are. And anyone who argues how tall a town hall building is, you're dang right it's tall. It's our municipal home. This project should be held to the ordinances and passed or not passed if they are unwilling to meet the ordinances. Massing is a proposed project, and the proposed project is important, and you do not have an elevation in front of you, and that is why the public hearing should be continued. The ordinance says that a 4-story building should scale down to 2-story building beside it, regardless of it being a bustling downtown. So I ask you to be very specific in what you want to write in that motion, because your definition of what's acceptable elevation is not necessarily the same as the developer's definition, staff's, residents surrounding, or the community. The trees on 106 property are large, but they are not as tall as the developer wants to build this building. Please do not go beyond the ordinances. As for a TIA, there isn't one. We need to consider that. How can we, do we know if there's left-hand turns? We have no idea. We don't know what that's going to look like. That's why it needs to be continued for the public hearing. Policy DT11 before this board came into office when there were nearly 1,000 apartments and townhomes already approved, which are being built currently or have just been completed in downtown. How many more are we going to add? The staff report says that this project is supported by LU6, a mix of land use. It's not a mix of mixed use. Land use and mixed use are not the same thing, and I'll stop there on that one, but please don't conflate them. When you put the sliver out to bid, you got two proposals. One was completely commercial, and the other was for this same land use. Which one did you choose? We don't know. Lastly, when did the planning process get to be multiple choice? Last week, the planning board was brought an incomplete project, and you have another 2-option project later tonight, and this is getting out from under us. Staff recommends the developer can follow the ordinance, show elevation plan, or provide adjacent property feedback. Until the staff report, we could look at the 2040 plan and downtown master plan to see the prevailing interest is to extend Holbrook Park. We can't keep blindsiding residents. With no TIA, no elevation plans to show massing, no decision between option 1 and 2, please ask for a continuance to get these things in place to make a better informed decision. We're going to get to option 1. We're going to get there, but let's not just say, well, if we don't get there, 2 is good enough. It boils down to what you hold valuable. This decision will be yours. How can we make an intentional and deliberate decision with all these variables? Please take the time to see the actual elevations of a single plan, see the TIA, and go from there, and we'll have a great time when it gets here. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes 9A. We're on to
Mayor Clark, I was wondering, did you plan to alert the people that are here tonight prior to our next public hearing that we had received a request for a deferral on one of the items that are under other business?
We did not have anyone sign up to speak for that.
Did you still want to let anyone know that might be in the audience?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that.
Yes. Item 10B, R24-15, which is the Station South project, has requested a deferral. So if you're here to hear that, it will not be occurring this evening. Thank you. All right, 9B, which is conduct a public hearing on petition R25-02 First and Church Street Townhomes. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Board. Brian Richards here for the staff. At this time, I'd like to enter the staff report to the record. As you just mentioned, this is a rezoning request of the First and Church from neighborhood residential to neighborhood residential conditional district for 14 townhomes. Here you can see an aerial oversight of the outlined in purple and in red from 2 different views recently. We'll go ahead and let everybody exit just for a second. All right. This would be a 100% attached development, roughly 12 units per acre, with some more urban build-to lines. Along the frontage, along Church Street, they would install a 12-foot seam trail. They're going to provide 44 parking spots, which roughly averages out to 3.2 units per acre, mostly made up of garage and surface, surface parking. They're requesting a 12-foot wide buffer along the north side, which would be a modification. We'll get to those in just a second. You see on the corner, you've got an urban open space provided, and they're looking to also provide a path around the SCM, formerly those are BMPs, the little ponds in the back. As you can see, we've got a little bit more blown up view here of the urban open space that's provided. Thank you, Larry. And we're working with them on enhancing that design over time and getting those up to standard. The initial design's pretty good. Again, we're going to keep working with them to get a little bit better product there. One of the highlights of this project is the 12-foot wide seam trail along Church Street. As you can see here, they're showing tree wells as opposed to tree grates. It's a visual enhancement for that area. One thing I'd like to point out that's not shown in this picture is they're going to stamp that, so it's a little more interesting material there as opposed to just plain concrete. Here's the elevations that we have at this moment. They're in pretty good shape for us. Excellent. Glad these guys have come in and showed us the elevations. We've got some good designs here. This is their first introduction to Huntersville Better Path, so it's been good to work with them. Excuse me. As we go through the ordinance modifications, they are looking for a modification for the rear setback of 35 feet down to 5 feet. Staff is in support of that because this is an urban setting. The 35 feet is for more of your suburban standards. We do have a upcoming text amendment that we're going to be proposing next month that would actually match this, that introduce this lot style. They just beat us to the punch. So we've got that coming up. They're also asking for a buffer reduction. This also has, excuse me, a 40-foot buffer along the north side and east side. Again, being in this urban setting, staff is in favor of a reduction of those buffers, and we're working with them on a aggressive planting plan. And as part of this, because this is just a small site at just 1 acre, they're asking for an allowance to grade in some of that area. And again, we're in support of that just due to the size and their ability to work the site and get it done. They will be replanting. One of the other, another modification they're requesting is to not have on-street parking. Of course, when we have lots less than 50 feet in width, we do require on-street parking. To make up for that, they have agreed to have additional parking in the rear and in the garages as well, so staff is comfortable with that modification as well. One thing that we're also working on, a text amendment that's not quite ready to come to fruition yet, is in these urban situations, you've got small build-to lines and tight areas, is the front yard tree and rear yard trees that are standards in our ordinance today. They're asking for that modification. And we're going to work with them to get some contributions to the tree plan. And then again, the biggest of the modifications to allow the 100% attached. Overall, we do think it's a good plan. Being new, they weren't quite sure what we were looking for in our tree save plan, so we're working with them, and there are engineers and architects to get that up to snuff, so we'll have some more information on that when we get to the planning board. We believe we can get to a resolution for that as well. As we look at this through the lens of the 2040 plan, obviously in the town core, excuse me, a little summertime allergies here, in the mixed-use center. Won't go over all the policies that this is in accordance to, but there's a number of them there. If you look at the downtown master plan, highlighted there in the red box in the middle, you can see this is an area that was targeted for multifamily apartments or attached homes. Here we are, they're going to ask for 14 attached homes. These are for sale, forgot to mention that, so that's great. Again, staff does recommend approval. We did have one recommendation that they provide one affordable unit, and I was just told as we came into the room this afternoon that they're going to agree to that one obtainable unit. So here we are. I'm here if you have any questions. The applicants do not have a presentation, but they're here to answer questions as well.
Commissioner Rivers?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to commend you on your on allocation of affordable housing. I know that we've talked about mixed use, residential use. A lot of apartments are coming in. A lot of developers have given allocation for affordable housing, but some residents would like to be homeowners. So thank you for that. I truly appreciate you for that. Yeah, that's it. But I definitely I raised that question because that was a question that I had, and so to know that that was allocated, thank you. I appreciate that.
Commissioner, anyone else? Commissioner Bergman?
So I do have one question. But first of all, I am excited about an all townhouse project, especially in this location. I mean, I spent my 20s and I think probably almost half of my 30s living in either apartments or townhomes. And I feel that, projects like that could really help address like the missing middle in Huntersville. So I appreciate that aspect. My only question is really on the park the little square, the corner park, I feel like you have an opportunity to make a really neat little pocket park. So I'd love to hear if you've thought about anything yet or kind of what you had in mind for that space.
So I'm Nick Petrie. I'm the land developer for Better Path Homes. This is my engineer, Nick Vesely. If you could repeat your question one more time, I was walking up here, I misheard.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Thank you.
So the corner, the little open space in the corner, I feel like that's a really nice opportunity. What's like 3,600 square feet or something like that?
Total, it's a little under 5,000.
Okay, for some kind of like little pocket park. I'm not talking like playground equipment or anything like that, but like a more urban style with like, benches, some gardens, something to really tie into for pedestrians walking past it to also be able to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll touch upon that. Because we have that, the rail path there, the staff had mentioned the same exact thing. So we're proposing to have benches, table, and that's going to actually, that middle design in the sphere is actually going to be a pergola or gazebo of some sort to kind of get out of the sun, a little shade, with some gardening and landscaping around it as well, which I do believe Luke is working on some landscaping plan for that as well.
Yeah, we'll have something a little bit more detail. I think the original feedback we got was more in line with more of like a transition stop for the transit line, being that there will be a transit station a little bit to the north of the site. So that wasn't our original intent, but I think we could certainly accommodate some kind of blend between differential mobility and more of like a park atmosphere. We think it would definitely be good for the residents in these units to have more of a green space. We are proposing, we could obviously go a little bit more dense on this site with unit count. We thought it'd be better to kind of incorporate the stormwater control measure in the back as also somewhat of a green space site amenity, as opposed to a traditional like wet pond or sand filter. That's more engineering, but it's less aesthetically attractive.
Any other questions? No? Okay. We don't have any public comments either, so thank you.
Thank you.
Item 9C, conduct a public hearing on petition R25-03 Mint Landscaping. And before we proceed, Commissioner Bergsman has made a request to be recused.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I make a motion to recuse Commissioner Bergsman for item 9C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, Commissioner Bergsman, you're recused. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So R2503, Mint Landscaping Conditional District Rezoning. Please enter my staff report into the record. So this is a pretty straightforward request. This site is an existing landscaping company. It's located in general residential zone. The applicants are looking to come into compliance with the ordinance, so they're petitioning to do a split rezoning from general residential to split GR and special purpose. There is a existing home on the northern part of the site that would be split and kept as general residential, and the southern part that has the landscaping business would then become a special purpose conditional district to allow the landscape business to continue on that site. On the screen you see on the rezoning map, you see some CB and some NR on either side, and some general residential to the south. And in the context map, there are single-family homes, new single-family homes being constructed to the east. There's some agricultural and vacant land adjacent. And as you can also, it's hard to see on the plan, but these businesses that are on the access easement are to the south and to the west. They are on the same access easement as this proposed site. So there isn't public road frontage. The closest public road is Hager's Road, so that easement comes off Hager's Road. So on the screen, you see the proposed site plan. You see the existing home on the northern section where that would be split. And then the southern portion is where the existing landscaping business is today. There's some storage on the site and some gravel, some open gravel. They would like to expand the gravel for parking of vehicles and landscaping equipment. They would petition to add some landscaping that is not currently there for the buffers on the street side and against the existing home and on the southern boundary. So that would require a modification request. There is a required 80-foot buffer for this type of use on the public side or from the public right-of-way side. In this case, it would be an easement, and against any residentially zoned properties. Because this site is existing, the petitioner has asked to do a modified buffer for 30 feet on the front. On the plan, it shows 20 feet on the south, which is adjacent to residentially zoned properties. They have verbally committed to keeping that uniform 30-foot buffer on that side as well. Another modification request is all commercial sites within the Huntersville ordinance require public road access or frontage. In this case, it is off of an easement. And then the requirement for parking for commercial uses is also pavement. This site, being a landscape company, would like to keep that as a gravel site. One big part of this plan is you see on the screen the two red arrows. That is the future alignment of the Siegel Street expansion going north. So as you see, this site is smack dab right in the middle of where that expansion would come in. So part of the condition to this rezoning would be the applicants have offered to reserve that right-of-way, and they've also committed to this being a temporary use until that road does become into construction. So going over the 2040 community plan, this site is in consistency with LU3, small neighborhood scale, serving commercial uses in the commercial or in the town core. So you see in the orange area on the screen, this is in the town core. L 8.1 emphasizes form and flexibility and regulation in the town core. And this site would be temporary use until the Siegel Street extension comes to let. One item that the plan does not support is LU7, which is require new development to follow design principles. Because this is an existing site today and the applicants are looking to come into compliance, they can't really front the street with a commercial building. It's just a storage building now with open storage of equipment. And because of the size of the site, 80-foot buffer would deem the site unuseful for them. With all that being said, staff is recommending approval for this. We think that with site improvements to the buffering that doesn't exist today, and where the site is and with adjacent agricultural businesses and some vacant property, and it's on an access easement, it's not road frontage, public road frontage, it's not highly visible. We recommend approval with the modification requests previously spoke of, and the condition that the site is temporary use in nature until the Siegel Street extension comes to fruition. Any questions? The applicants are here. They don't have a presentation, but they're available for questions as well.
I heard you say a couple times that we're bringing this site into compliance, and so can you just kind of go into further detail on what that means and how, like the history, how we got here?
Sure. So staff noticed by a complaint that there was commercial use on this site, of this subject site. So through enforcement and contacting the applicant, they realized this wasn't a site available for commercial use. So instead of doing your formal enforcement violation, they're coming in with applications to try and come into compliance with a conditional rezoning.
It's very helpful. Yes. Any questions for the applicant, anyone? Okay, we do not have any public comments, so thank you very much. I get a motion to bring back Commissioner Bergsman.
I make a motion to bring back Commissioner Bergsman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right. Someone retrieve Commissioner Bergsman, please. Item 9D, conduct public hearing on petition R25-05 MHH Logistics.
Good evening. I would like to put my staff report in the record for rezoning R2505 MHH Logistics. This is a rezoning request, a conditional rezoning from corporate business to corporate business conditional district. As we can see on the zoning map, it's currently all commercial or corporate business zoning there. Context map, we can see the business park to the northwest, the DMV directly to the north, directly surrounded by existing industrial flex buildings, and then the proposed Town 1 project to the southeast has some warehousing there as well. So it's currently being used as a industrial or corporate business area of town. Some of the highlights of the site plan, it's roughly about 73,000 square feet of industrial flex with associated office. The lot's existing, and it's, like I mentioned, currently zoned corporate business. With the use being proposed already allowed, the rezoning request is required due to some site constraints requiring ordinance modifications. The first modification is that the zoning ordinance prohibits any sort of disturbance in swim or stream buffers. There was an intermittent stream found further into the site than originally thought when they went out and did a field survey. Like I just mentioned, per our ordinance, you're not allowed to disturb any of that, but within the corporate business zoning district, you are allowed to petition to the town board through a conditional zoning process to then mitigate that stream buffer. In our ordinance, we have 9 options about how you can appropriately mitigate that stream. The applicant is choosing number 8, which is the mitigation credits. So the applicant is working through that process to purchase those credits, work with town staff and Mecklenburg County staff for the Mecklenburg County Stream Restoration Program. Essentially, it's going to allow Mecklenburg County to have funds to do a stream restoration with essentially a 1-to-1 comparison to how much buffer or intermittent stream is disturbed for this project. Here we can see on the site plan exactly why they needed to disturb that stream buffer in order for the site to work. Second modification, there are required buffers like we've been talking about in the corporate business district. There is a buffer around each side and at the front right-of-way due to sparse tree canopy on site already and some topographic challenges at the front. The applicant is requesting a modification to disturb and then fully replant that buffer. Per our ordinance, it's meant to be undisturbed, but they are, again, grading and going to replant the entirety of the buffer. There's no modification within the actual size of the buffer, and then they will meet the planting standards found within our zoning ordinance. Now to talk about how the 2040 plan addresses this proposal. Like I mentioned, and you saw on the context map, it's almost completely surrounded by industrial uses already. The future land use map stars it as an employment center, so any sort of office, industrial, institutional. So it fits within that future land use map. That's one of the key points that the 2040 plan supports. This proposal, it's also supported by LU5, which is to develop where there's infrastructure to support. This is off of Mount Holly, Huntersville Road, which is identified as a minor thoroughfare. It's also within a quarter mile of I-77 as well. One of the opportunities, I wish I had Brad's fancy little work in progress. I would have put that here, because this is also a work in progress. This is something that the applicant has worked with town staff, Mecklenburg staff. One of our environmental policies is order to enhance water quality locally. Like I mentioned, they had purchased the mitigation credit, so they have met the ordinance, but we are trying to work with Mecklenburg County staff to see if those credits can be used in a project locally. This is something that we've done before. Obviously, there are certain constraints about simply, is there a project available that these credits can be used for? So we are working with the Mecklenburg County in order to try to get those funds allocated. The applicants are in support of that as well. So it's really more of a thing of can it feasibly work? But they are meeting the ordinance through that mitigation credits. Now on to staff recommendations. It's corporate business use in a corporate business parcel, but one that needs some flexibility with some of our zoning requirements in order for the plan to work. So staff does recommend approval with the following conditions. Like I mentioned, continue working with staff to see if those credits can be used locally, and then any sort of minor comments on the rezoning plan. That concludes my presentation. The applicants do have a presentation, but we can stop for questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for staff? All right, we'll have the applicants come up. And just a reminder, you have 15 minutes.
Hi, I'm Cindy Reed with the Urban Law Group, and I'm here tonight representing MHH Logistics, and I'll make this short because it's really straightforward. And Sherry Chafin is here also. She's the developer, along with Chris Fleck, who's the engineer. So if you have any technical questions, Chris is your guy. This is really straightforward. This is surrounded by industrial, it's zoned industrial. We were going through site plan and realized that there was a stream buffer on this site, and so we had to get the modification in order to make the plan work. Again, Chris has already been over this. It's already zoned corporate business. We're just asking for conditional district so that we can have the stream modification and the frontage modification. These uses are already allowed here. And again, we're here for the intermittent stream buffer to be impacted and to have a fee as the mitigation. And Mecklenburg County just today approved the stream impact mitigation permit. So they did that today. We're also asking for a modification to allow the front 80-foot buffer to be graded and then replanted. And believe me, this is going to be an improvement as to what's there now because it's just not very pretty. And the new plantings will make it look much more attractive. Through the conditional zoning, we had a community meeting. Nobody came. This is our public hearing. Then we have a planning board meeting, then the final town board meeting. And y'all know all that. Again, that's the stream, that's the buffer that's impacted, and Patrick already showed you that, so I don't need to again. And here's the 80-foot landscape buffer with the tree planting that's required, and I know that you can't read that. I can't read it either, but do know it's going to be attractive, and it's not attractive now. And I think it's important to realize that when you allow these industrial projects, you really increase the value of the land. This land is vacant right now. I think it has a trailer on it. It's being used to store some equipment. It's in a brownfields program. So you're going to add $15 million of value just by putting that project there and add approximately 50 new jobs, and it supports local businesses. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sherry's happy to answer any questions, and Chris loves to answer questions.
Do we know what type of business might go there?
It's industrial flex, so it could be anything from a HVAC contractor, tile supplier. It will be a multi-tenant building.
Okay, thanks.
Since that wasn't into the mic, for those watching and recording, industry flex could be a number of things, you said? Industrial flex?
The term is just for shallow bay industrial, not like a huge warehouse.
Not a huge warehouse,
Yeah,
okay.
a little bit of office in front, and then the rear, the warehouse part that you need trucks to come and load items.
So trucks in the back for loading. Okay, thank you.
So for the stream mitigation, what happens to the stream that's currently there as far as like once this site is built? Is it just filled in or diverted or?
It's filled in.
Okay.
And if you want to answer that's more technical than that, I'm going to have to turn that over to Chris, but it's filled in.
Okay. Could you come to the mic? Thank you.
Come up here.
Mayor, I'll say they did it up on the corner of Mount Holly and Hambright, I guess it is. The building right there on the corner where Sex Systems is, very back corner of that had the exact same thing, and the same person was involved.
So to answer your question about the buffer or the stream being filled, we have permitted that through the Army Corps of Engineers. We have received all the various permits from the state to do that. We've received all that documentation, so it's permissible. And to be honest, it's really a ditch. It's really not a stream. Unfortunately, requirements at the state level are very, very stringent. So this 1.5 to 2 foot area of a ditch is really only wet when we have excessive rain. So I wouldn't classify it as a stream by what most of us here in this room would think of a stream. And then another point, just to further punctuate what was presented in Patrick's presentation, Mecklenburg County has said the town of Huntersville will be getting the full benefit of the mitigation, and it's a hefty check. So we're bearing the burden of that for this very minor stream. It's a 6-figure check. So the town of Huntersville is getting that funding. So I don't think that's still up in the air issue anymore.
Okay.
From our perspective. So
Yeah, I was just like wondering where, like if, but you've answered already, like where the water would go if you're like filling in, like what happens to the water when it.
There'll be a pipe.
Okay.
That will be diverted into what is a real stream behind the site.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Okay, so I have a follow-up. So Patrick said that we could use it if there was somewhere to use it, right? So like if there isn't anywhere for us to use those credits or to use that money or whatever for like another stream restoration, am I understanding that right? Then what happens? Does the money just go back to the county? Do we keep the county and save it, or keep the money and save it? Like, how does that work?
Well, it has to be used for a stream mitigation project, and that would be up to Mecklenburg County and the town to decide how those funds would be used. And we certainly would support any efforts to use those funds locally, but it's not our decision. You have anything else you want to add to that?
I do believe there is a current project in Huntersville with Clark. Yeah, Clark Creek project that we might be able to use some of these funds for.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. We didn't have any public comments, so thank you very much. (9E), conduct a public hearing on petition TA-25-07, request of the Town Huntersville Planning Department to amend Huntersville zoning.
Good evening. I'd like to put my staff report in the record for TA 25-07, the BOA or Board of Adjustment redesignation. Public hearing, a little background on the text amendment. The town board issued a directive to redesignate the responsibilities of the Board of Adjustment to the Planning Board. Town staff has then gone through the zoning and subdivision ordinance to replace all references of the Board of Adjustment with Planning Board, effectively transferring all duties and responsibilities previously assigned to the Board of Adjustment to the Planning Board. Here's an example of what that ordinance looks like. Times this by 50, and that's what the ordinance looks like, simply taking out adjustment and replacing it with planning. So staff recommends approval as it will further clarify the responsibilities designated by the town board. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions? We do have one public comment on this item. Chris? No. Okay, she defers. All right, thank you. All right, so that concludes 9E. 9F, conduct a public hearing on petition TA 25-05 fire code. Ms. Pritchard.
Good evening. We are here today to talk about Text Amendment 2505, which deals with North Carolina Senate Bill 166. First, I would like to submit my staff report into the record. So Senate Bill 166 amends the zoning ordinance and the Code of Ordinances, but tonight we're just dealing with the amendment that's being made to the Code of Ordinances. The zoning ordinance amendments will be coming later. So it changes the Fire Prevention Code, the title of the Fire Prevention Code, to North Carolina Fire Code. There are 2 references to this in Article 150.05B3 and 150.14A. There are no changes to the actual regulations or the enforcement of the North Carolina Fire Code. It simply just changes the name. So staff is recommending approval of the text amendment as it allows us to comply with North Carolina Senate Bill 166. Planning Bill, we'll hear this on June 24th, and it'll come back for final action on August 5th. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have for me.
Any questions? This is pretty straightforward. All right, thank you. We don't have any public comments for this one either.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're on to item 10, other business. 10A, consider adopting the fiscal year 2026 budget ordinance. Anthony Roberts. Would you like to speak on the budget?
Gosh, this is going to take a long time. Just go ahead and pull up all the bullet points. Larry, is there more to it? Maybe not. There you go. One slide. I won't go into great details. We've gone over this many times. No change to the tax rate. What I would ask you to do tonight is adopt the budget ordinance and set the tax rate at 22.75. There have been a couple of changes since the last presentation. I was out of town at the last presentation. I'm sure Jackie and Patty did a whole lot better than I could do. The changes are at the bottom. We did $30,000 change for a half year to provide some veteran services functions in cooperation with the county at Town Hall, and then also a half year for Arbors for the planning department. So this made, you can see the numbers above, the 89 million in the general fund changed to 89,347, and then your total annual fund changed from roughly 125 million to slightly above that to 125,056,830. So again, ask for you to adopt a budget and set the tax rate again same as it currently is, 22.75. And that's it.
Any questions? No? All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget?
I make a motion to approve the FY26 budget ordinance.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? I will add to discussion. This budget is a reflection of this board's values and an investment in staff and public safety and infrastructure. And so we are proud to put this forward as support for our town as it continues to grow. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 10B, consider decision on petition R24-15. We have a request for deferral.
Correct. The applicant has requested a deferral to the December 16th meeting.
All right. May I have a motion to defer item 10B?
I make a motion to defer petition R24-15, a request by Station South LLC, to December 15th, 2025 at Huntersville Town Hall at 6 p.m.
Is there a second?
I second.
Oh.
16.
My bad, I meant the 16th. Thanks, Janet.
All right. We had a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item 10C, consider approving the purchase of Seagrave Marauder pumper trucks. I believe we have a request from staff to defer this item. And so is there a motion to defer item 10C?
I make the motion that we defer the purchase of. Okay, all right.
Yeah, keep going.
I make the motion that we defer the purchase of 2 Seagrave Marauder pumper trucks for a total of $2,564,007 until June 17th, 2025, at the Huntersville Town Board meeting at 6 o'clock p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Item number 10B, consider approving budget amendment appropriating emergency services fund, and also there's a request from just staff to defer this item. Do I have a motion to defer item 10D?
I make the motion that we defer budget amendment appropriating emergency services funds balance in the amount of $2,564,007 to the capital outlay for the purchase of 2 Seagrave Marauder pumper trucks and Seagrave Fire Apparatus LLC until June 17th, 2025, at the Huntersville Town Board meeting at 6 o'clock p.m.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 10E. Consider decision on traffic calming measures on Devonshire Drive. Laura, you're up.
Hi. So I'm going to summarize my presentation from last meeting. We're talking about the traffic calming on Devonshire Road Drive and also on Cockerham Lane. So if you zoom in for Devonshire, it's just to the east of Stone Mountain Road. It's in the bridge area. The other one's Cockerham between Devonshire and Oxbridge. So we're going to start on Devonshire. We had 2 options. The first option was to add 2 speed humps in between the existing 2 other speed humps, one on each side of the bridge. The other option was to mark a center double yellow line across the bridge and around the curve. On Cockerham, we only had one option, was to put the speed hump around 200 feet north of Oxbridge, which that road has a big dip in it, and that would be a good location for the speed hump. When we asked feedback between police, fire, and the community, everyone was in favor of speed humps for these locations. And that's all I have. If anyone had any additional questions for me.
Any additional questions, anyone? All right. Do we have a motion for item 10E?
Do I need to split these into 2, or can I just say?
Yeah, we should do
Okay.
Devonshire,
And then
1 or 2.
Okay, so motion to approve option 1 of traffic calming measures on Devonshire Drive.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. And then for Cockerham Lane,
Yeah, motion to approve option 1 of traffic calming measures on Cockerham Lane.
and is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 10F, adopt an ordinance for the demolition and removal of the structure located at 14002 South Old Statesville Road. Mr. Blackwood, welcome.
Good evening. I'm Darius Blackwood, Code Development Officer. I'm here to present the ordinance for adoption for the property located at 14002 South Old Statesville. Here's a copy of the ordinance. I'd like to just go over a brief timeline of what led us to this point. On September 13th, 2023, Derek Son of Mecklenburg County conducted an inspection for minimum housing. In his report, he indicated that the property had defects, including missing exterior windows, doors, and siding. As a result of that inspection, the first notice of violation was sent out on September 20th of 2023. We fast forward to October 24th of 2024. Tim Parnell, second inspector of Mecklenburg County, went out and performed another notice of violation inspection. And per his report, there was floor system failures, load-bearing walls, and roof system failures, and the property graded at 54%, resulting and the classification as dilapidated. It has to score at least 50%. This property scored at 54.3. And at the time, no permits were obtained and no repairs had been made. On December 9th of 2024, a notice of complaint and a notice of hearing was sent to the property owner. On December 19th of 2024, there was a hearing. At the hearing, the conditions in the Town of Huntersville Minimum Housing Code, the Housing Code Administrator of Mecklenburg County determined the structure was dilapidated and unfit for human habitation. A ruling was made that the dwelling to be demolished within 120 days from that date, which would have been April 18th, 2025. Per Mecklenburg County records, on March 11th, a permit was applied for by the applicant, and on April 9th, the permit was issued by Mecklenburg County. I have pictures of the property. And this is the video of the inside of the property. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Worthman?
Just one or two. Do you know how old the home is?
It's 1942.
1942, so it's significant, okay. And it sounds, from your presentation, that the property owner has had multiple opportunities to bring it into compliance. Now, I just wondering, do you happen to know if this property owner has any other properties in town that are currently in violation of any of our ordinances or codes?
Not right now that I'm aware of right now.
Okay, thanks, that's all I've got.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Do we have a motion for item 10F?
Make a motion to adopt the ordinance approving demolition of 14002 South Old Statesville Road.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10H, consider appointing 3 members to the planning board due to 3 expiring terms.
Did we skip 10G?
Oh, whoops, I sure did. I marked it off. 10G, excuse me, I'm trying to rush us through our meeting. Approve the artist recommendation by the Public Art Commission to the Sustainable Bus Stop Bench Mural. Thanks, Tracy.
How is everyone tonight? So the Public Art Commission has a new exciting project. We purchased the Sustainable Bus Stop Bench. It is made from, well, this is the location. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the location that we're planning on putting it. We will put the current bench into one of our park areas or in another place in the downtown area. But the vision of this is to beautify and enliven the bus stop structures by painting the new sustainable bench made from a retired wind turbine blade. The design should represent Huntersville, reflect the area and community, and create a feeling of welcome. The committee is seeking original artwork suitable for outdoor public space. So this was taken straight from the RFP sent out to the artists. A little bit about the bench. Like I said, it's retired wind turbine blade. It's 3 to 5 inches fiberglass, extremely durable, no maintenance, no rust or corrosion, moisture resistant, and performs in all climates. And they have different options, the covered options and then kind of the half moon option. And those are public art examples in other locations. This is the first one in North Carolina, just so you all know. This is also from the RFP, the artist selection process. I'll kind of summarize it. The artist will receive $3,000 stipend, and that is to include all the equipment, materials that they need to complete the mural. The Public Art Commission reviewed all the submissions and then made their selection for one artist, which then we bring to the town board tonight. And also in April 2025, we were awarded the Smart Communities Grant for $5,000 from Electricities. So that will cover the artist fee and then any improvements that need to be made to that area for the bench placement. And this was the mural selected. It's called Winds of Welcome. And then for this it's not me, but his name is Junior Gomez is the artist. And he said, for this project, I have created and painted design concept titled Winds of Welcome, inspired by sustainable nature of the retired wind turbine blade and the community spirit in Huntersville. The design, this is an extended version of it, the design features flowing abstract patterns that represent movement, growth, and connection, key elements that mirror both the origins of the bench material and the town's dynamic energy. Integrated within the flow are stylized nods to Huntersville natural and historical landmarks, including dogwood flowers, rolling landscapes, and waves from nearby Lake Norman. The color palette of warm earth tones, soft blues, and pops of golden yellow was selected to evoke a welcoming, lively feeling while celebrating a natural beauty of the region. My goal with this artwork is to create a design that feels uplifting, rooted in place, and invites the community to feel a sense of pride and belonging each time they encounter it. So that the image on the left is kind of what he submitted, and then we asked him to drop it onto the bench. That's just a rendering. It's not going to look exactly like that. The Public Art Commission will work with him because they do want the word Huntersville somewhere in it, so all the placement and everything, but like I said, that's just a rendering. And then about the artist, he is local Mecklenburg County. That was the Public Art Commission really wanted to give priority to any local artist, and he straight out of Charlotte. And then one of our members has also worked with him on other jobs, and so we're really excited to work with him. Any questions?
Mr. Hunt?
Are there intentions to do more of these? Or is this just like dependent on grants or what's
I'm going to
this?
say my intentions are to do more. Yes. I think it would be cool to this kind of be our piece that you see pop around the downtown area or in the parks and other places. You see these cool benches, whether they're in bus stops, like Veterans Park, or I mean anywhere, but it would, and then we can have the murals all over, so that pop of color. So yes, that would be my intention.
That would be
I think
lovely.
the Public Art Commission too, yeah.
Yeah, cool, thank you.
Maybe cash.
Oh,
I also have already thought of that.
Commissioner Bergsman, you have something?
Yeah, I was just the same thing. I had never heard of wind turbines being used in this way. I love when I hear about new ways to kind of recycle and repurpose, materials. And you say we're the first in North Carolina.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely think that would be a lovely opportunity to, have something that becomes part of our thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I serve as the board rep on the Public Arts Commission and believe the team did a really thorough job of reviewing and recommending an artist for this job. First, I'm excited that this bench will help people get shade and sun from the sun and cover from the rain while we continue to try to get more CATS transit shelters in Huntersville. And when it comes to the artists, there were several beautiful options to pick from that provided some compelling stories for what they pulled inspiration from. Some were local, and some had submitted from after visiting the area and liking the area, so that was pretty cool too. In the end, the group had picked a local artist with a beautiful design that speaks to the area and fits with the surroundings, so I'm really excited to see this approved.
Any other questions, comments? All right, are we ready for, you have a comment and a motion? Okay.
Before I make my motion to approve this, by the way, because you guys did an amazing job, I want to commend you for your hard work, for creating a vibrant Huntersville, because again, our theme is to thrive here. And I think you all have done a great job in capturing that and just making sure that, Huntersville is a vibrant place. So thank you. And I appreciate, again, your hard work. Commissioner Dumas, thank you guys. Definitely appreciate you. And this is amazing. First one in North Carolina. Kudos to Huntersville. We rock. So, so without further ado, if we do not have any other comments, I would like to make the motion to approve the artist recommended by the Public Arts Commission for the Sustainable Bus Stop Bench mural.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now we are on to item 10H. Consider appointing 3 members to the planning board for expiring terms. Mr. Richard.
Correct. We do have 3 members that will be stepping down at the end of June, so we're asking that 3 new appointees be made this evening to fill those positions. I believe you guys have a list in front of you.
We'll start with you.
Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. We're going to start with you, Commissioner Bergsman. Do you have your 3 nominees?
Yes, Trina Loomis, Prince, and I might get this wrong, Prince Tokpa, and Kevin DeParthy.
All right, Commissioner Dumas.
Trina Loomis, Prince Topka, and Kevin McCarthy.
Commissioner Hunt.
Trina Loomis, Prince Tokpa, and Marshall Horseman.
Commissioner Quarles.
Prince Tokpa, Marshall Horseman, and Kevin DeParthy.
Commissioner Rivers.
Prince Tokpa, Marshall Horseman, Trina Loomis.
Commissioner Wallace is not here. Okay, let me do some math here real quick. Okay. 3. Okay. All right. So we have 5 for Prince Tokpa, 4 for Trina Loomis, 3 for Marshall Horseman, and 3 for Kevin DeParthy. And I will break the tie and go with Mr. Horseman for that one. So make that 4. All right. So can I get a motion for 3 appointees, Prince Tokpa, Trina Loomis, and Marshall Horseman?
I make a motion to appoint Trina Loomis, Prince Tokpa, Marshall Horseman to the planning board due to the expiring terms.
And is there a second?
Second.
Any
Just for clarification, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about the time that we are appointing them to. There was a previous directive by the board to align the appointments to a March schedule, so I want to make sure that we are doing the timeframe through March 2028. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
As long as that's understood as part of the motion.
Yes. Thank you.
That would be to the end of March 2028.
Just for clarity, because I didn't vote for or nominate one of the individuals, how does the vote, I mean, do I vote in favor or vote opposite?
So those were the 3 highest nomination getters. So the motion would be to vote for them. If you don't want to vote to nominate those 3, you would have to vote against.
Thanks.
Okay. So we had a second. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11, closing comments. Commissioner Rivers.
Yes, yes, yes. Hi, everybody. Good evening. We got a little time. So this weekend, it's an exciting weekend for the Pottstown community. First up, on Friday, June 6th at 5:00 p.m. at the David Waymer Center, you all are invited to an evening of memories and celebration of Pottstown history. So come out. It is at the David Waymer Center. This is sponsored by Mech Roots. And it is a kickoff to the 49th annual Huntersville Festival that is located also at the David B. Waymer Center, and that will be held on Saturday. So a fun-filled weekend of Pottstown heritage, history, and fun and family. So please come out and enjoy. And the festival it begins at 9:00 a.m. You do not have to get out there that early, but softball games, food, fun, and a live band. Thank you.
Dumas?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to speak a little bit about the Pride Proclamation tonight. Thank you, Mayor, for reading that. And thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts tonight and via email over the past week. I appreciate those who have expressed disagreement respectfully. Civil dialogue is essential to democracy. I had several conversations via email with folks I disagreed with that went very well and that I enjoyed. But some of the messages we've received have gone beyond disagreement. They've included blatant homophobia. And that is exactly why proclamations like this matter. For context, the Pride Month proclamation is one of dozens this board issues every year, one of just 2 tonight. We've recognized everything from National Public Works Week to Cancer Awareness, Black History Month, gun safety, and others. Until now, these proclamations have rarely drawn controversy. So it's worth asking, why this one? The Pride Proclamation is a small symbolic gesture that says the LGBTQ+ residents are a part of this community and they deserve to be safe, seen, and included. It does not diminish anyone else, and it certainly doesn't exclude people of faith, as I know many faithful LGBTQ+ people and allies. I want to address that point directly because I've heard it raised repeatedly. I will always support the right of anyone to practice their faith and live out their beliefs. But there is a difference between what someone believes and who someone is. Faith is a choice, being LGBTQ+ is not. One group being acknowledged does not mean another is being erased. Someone else celebrating who they are is not a threat to your religion. Forcing everyone in town to attend an event that goes against their faith would be, and that's not what this is. This is a proclamation. Participation is voluntary. Visibility is not coercion. The discomfort we're seeing around this proclamation only highlights why these types of inclusion efforts are necessary. Kids are seeing the comments on Facebook and Instagram. LGBTQ+ people are not asking for special treatment. They're asking to exist safely and openly in the town they call home, without their existence being protested and debated. As leaders, our job isn't to avoid controversy, it's to do what's right. And I believe doing what's right means ensuring that Huntersville is a place where every person, regardless of identity, belief, or background, knows they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hunt? Commissioner Quarles?
Yes, I cordially invite you all to the inaugural Veterans Coffee Connection, which will be held next Friday, June 13th. It will be at Huntersville Presbyterian Church starting at 9:30 a.m. Come celebrate and enjoy coffee and nothing but cakes and donuts and orange juice at Presbyterian Huntersville Church, Huntersville Presbyterian Church. So again, we just cordially invite you to come out, and we have House Representative Beth Healthridge is going to come and give a welcome for the inaugural event. We have someone from the State Veteran Affairs, someone from the County Veteran Affairs, someone from Veteran Bridge Home. So it was going to be a pretty big turnout, and I'm excited. And again, you're cordially invited to join us, along with Frank.
You might have to go for an exercise after all those donuts and things. Commissioner Bergsman?
Yes, I also just wanted to speak briefly in regards to some of the messages that we've received. Most were cordial and respectful. A few were not. Recognizing Pride Month for me is not about promoting one group over others. It's about affirming that LGBTQ+ residents are part of our community and deserve to feel seen, safe, and included. Some have asked whether discrimination is happening here. The truth is, disparities often go unseen by those who don't experience them. But acknowledging that reality isn't divisive, I feel it's compassionate. The earrings I'm actually wearing tonight were made by someone that lives in our community who's a trans youth. They are watching. All of our youth are watching, and we need to do what's right for them. This Pride Month proclamation is a simple, symbolic way to say that everyone belongs in Huntersville. Inclusion does not diminish community, it strengthens it.
lastly, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you.